Hello. Welcome to episode 5 of Multifaceted. We're shifting into some new territory this month of July, it being a theme month where we're talking all about self-awareness for this month. So every Monday at 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, I'll be coming on to talk to you about self-awareness and different aspects of that. And the title for today's episode is Self-Awareness is Sexy, but what about self-sabotage? So we're going to be diving into that in a few minutes. First of all, just wanted to welcome you here and thank you for watching Multifaceted. This live video series was created out of a desire to connect and to share and to open up a conversation about how multifaceted we are as human beings, how multidimensional we are, and how this coaching work, this healing work is also incredibly multidimensional as well, because it's supporting all of the aspects and layers of who we are. And so we are shifting into a longer conversation over the next 4 weeks about self-awareness. It's one of my favorite topics. And it is something that I think is one of the sexiest things really that exists out there when it comes to relating with other people. To be able to relate to someone that is very self-aware is just very attractive. It's something that is magnetic, right? To be able to have that quality, that ability to look within, that ability to understand how we as individuals operate, to understand our triggers, the things that can set us off, the things that can cause us to react in a certain way. Even if we're not fully self-aware in the moment, that we can allow ourselves to take some space, to walk away and to really think about what's really going on, what's really bothering us in this situation. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and we're going to talk today especially about the opposite of that, how when our emotions are running high, often that's when self-sabotage can kick in, how we can, say or do things that can have a longer lasting impact. And the self-sabotaging reaction comes from a place of, not fully being aware of or clear of why we're reacting in the way that we are. So it's a sign of low self-awareness often when this self-sabotage happens. But the more that we can learn about ourselves, the more that we can understand how we sabotage ourselves, the more self-aware we become. So they're kind of opposite levels or opposite sides of the spectrum. So within this conversation, one of the things that I wanted to talk about especially is our emotions, our feelings. Because when we're in a relationship or when we're encounter something that happens that triggers us, that causes our emotions to escalate, whether that's fear or anger or sadness or hurt or jealousy, whatever that is. Sometimes it's hard to even fully know what the emotion is. We just are triggered, right? And we're going to act out, or we're going to run, or we're going to put our defenses up to protect ourselves. And so one of the things that I think is really important, and I wrote about this week, is about really owning our emotions, but also knowing that we aren't our emotions. Our emotions don't define who we are, but we need to first and foremost make sure that when we are feeling high emotions, that we're not putting that on the other person. We're not attaching blame, that a person could cause us to feel a certain way. Of course, people can act and it can cause reactions within us. And I think it's always really important and healthy to express ourselves, you know, about how we were triggered, especially if the relationship is really important to us, you know, that we're able to take a step back and calmly really think about what it is that triggered us, why the emotions were triggered, and get a deeper understanding. And this is where the self-awareness comes in, a deeper understanding of what's really going on beneath the surface. You know, I had this experience over the weekend where I was triggered and something happened in my relationship, and it took me a little while. It took me even actually raising the issue and having the conversation. And then it took me stepping back and really sitting with the feelings for me to be able to understand what it was really all about. And when you have the ability to do that and you give yourself that time and space, it's incredible what you can discover. It's incredible what you can find out about yourself. And there's so often a really beautiful opportunity for healing as well. Because when we get triggered by something, it's like we're opening up a door, or there's the potential to open up a door into an aspect of ourselves that might have been covered up, might have been concealed, that might have been buried. You know, and one of the most important things to ask yourself if you're triggered, if your emotions are high, is to ask yourself what this experience, what this feeling reminds you of. Is this a familiar feeling? Is this something that goes back to an earlier experience in your life? Do you remember feeling this way even when you were a child? And you can get some really beautiful clues from doing some of this very sexy self-awareness work. You know, to be able to really have a deeper understanding of where it's all coming from, of where that reactivity is coming from. And, you know, you can gain a lot of insight into yourself and your own needs, and where, you know, maybe in that particular relationship or in your own self-care, where your needs aren't being met, where you might not be providing yourself for something that you need, where you may be withholding that from yourself. So it's a journey of exploration that you can really dive into, and it can open up a whole world. It can open up an opportunity for an up level. It can open up an opportunity for healing, for a shift in a new direction. And it's just, in my opinion, always a really beautiful thing to gain more self-awareness. Now, there are certain things that can block our self-awareness, and it's important to be aware of those as well. And I think one of the biggest things that can block our self-awareness is being really, really busy. You know, never having the opportunity to slow down and to look within. And, you know, also never really having the opportunity for quiet and stillness and reflection. I just got a notification that I have low network connection. So I'm not sure. I'm hoping that this part is being recorded, but just in case, I'm gonna pause for a second. And hopefully that notification goes back to normal in a second. There we go. So I'm not sure if that last little bit recorded. I got a sign saying it was low network connection, so I just paused. But I also lost my train of thought. What was I talking about? I think it was how this is, it just opens up a journey of self-exploration. Oh, I know what I was talking about. The blocks to self-awareness. Things that can hinder our ability to be self-aware. And as I was saying a couple of minutes ago, if we're not allowing ourselves the chance to slow down and the opportunity to have moments of stillness and reflection in our lives, it can be a lot harder for us to be fully self-aware. And I think one of the other things that can challenge our own self-awareness is, one of the things that's really interesting is it's a lot easier to see lack of self-awareness in another person. It's easier to see that than it is to actually learn and understand what it is that's going on with us. It takes, being vulnerable. It can be uncomfortable to go deep like that and to really look at what's going on under the surface. And, it can often be easier to try to untangle what's going on with the other person, or to try to pick apart what's going on with them and where they may not be self-aware. And of course, in a relationship, in a couple, it's a two-way street. And again, this is where I was talking about earlier about the importance of owning our emotions. Your emotions aren't you, but they're yours. They're yours to own. They're your responsibility. They are often really important clues to learn more about yourself. So noticing when your emotions are high and having that be actually an opportunity to learn more about yourself in those moments. Because that's another block to self-awareness, is when, we just make it all about the other person. And we can make it worse if we go and talk about that other person to someone else and, pick apart, and, then it gets into, like this state of hyper focus on the other person, so that we can't see what's going on with us. So I think it's just so important. It's such an important reminder to really own where we're being triggered and to do that work. That sometimes vulnerable and uncomfortable work to uncover what's really going on beneath the surface. And sometimes it can be surprisingly unrelated. Hey, Leisha. Unrelated to, thank you. Sometimes it can be unrelated to the moment that we're, experiencing. Like the thing that's triggering us, the thing that's coming up for us, it can be completely unrelated to what it was that, was really buried beneath the surface for us. So through this process of doing that digging, of being self-aware, of really asking ourselves, some of the questions that I mentioned earlier, when do I recall feeling this way in the past? What does this set of emotions and feelings remind me of? Does this way of being triggered remind me of how someone in my early life used to trigger me, or, a dynamic that was created, maybe back in our family, so there's some beautiful information that can come up from asking ourselves those really important questions. Thank you, Leisha. And again, it's just all so valuable for growth and for the up level and for, again, combating self-sabotage. Because the thing about self-sabotage is it's like a barrier or a wall between where we are now and what we really want. And of course, it can bring up a lot of fear. I mean, there's all sorts of really rational or logical reasons why self-sabotage happens. our subconscious is always trying to keep us safe. It's always trying to keep things the same. And so anytime that we're shifting towards or we're trying to, draw something new into our lives, we're moving ourselves outside of our comfort zone. Maybe we're in an incredible new relationship that is exactly what we always wanted, and we're afraid we're going to screw it up, or we're taking new steps in our career. We're putting ourselves out there, taking some risks, getting outside the comfort zone. It's very normal for our subconscious mind to start to send off some alarm bells and start to raise some concerns. This doesn't feel safe. This change doesn't feel safe. There's risk happening here. And of course, that's the job of our subconscious mind, to kind of pull us back and draw us in so that life does stay the same. But chances are, if you're someone with ambitions and goals and desires, that's not what you want, right? So often our conscious mind and our subconscious mind can be pulling us in two different directions, and this is where self-sabotage can really come in. And next week, we're going to take the conversation a little bit deeper, and we're going to be talking more about inner child and how all of that plays a role as well. But for today, I think the big question, the big thing to remind ourselves about when self-sabotage does start to kick in, it's just such an important time to really look at what's going on and to deepen into the self-awareness, because that's the best way to combat self-sabotage, is to really take a step back, try to get to a place where you can calm your emotions, do some processing, do what feels good, so that you can, make sure that when those emotions are high, you're not acting from that place, because that's often when self-sabotage will win. So it's just a good point at this stage, and whatever it is that's going on that's triggering your self-sabotage, to take a step back, take a deep breath and do whatever it is that helps you with processing, helps you with managing your emotions, with regulating and calming you down, so that you can take a look at this from a place of really clear-headedness, so that you have an understanding of what's really going on, and deepening that self-awareness and really understanding what's operating underneath the surface there. What's causing you to react in a certain way. Is it fear? Is it, a trigger? Is there something deeper going on, that you're being reminded of a previous experience in your life where, things never worked out, or where you tried to create something, or you tried to make something happen, and you were told something about the world or about yourself, and these are the kinds of things that can get embedded in our subconscious, these sort of rules about how the world works that are limiting and that create limiting beliefs within us, and that keeps us limited. So again, this is all just really important for us to fully understand what makes us tick, and just, again, knowing that so many things that are within our subconscious that are holding us back, those can be shifted. Those can be shifted with hypnotherapy. Those can be shifted with all sorts of other really beautiful tools as well. One of the other tools that I use is emotional freedom technique, which can help to release trauma and stress that's stored in the body. It also is really beautiful with helping to process trapped emotions, or emotions that are, preventing us from being able to think clearly. So emotional freedom technique is really beautiful at helping taking the intensity or the emotional charge of an experience or a feeling that's being triggered by a certain thought, so that we can see things more clearly and we can advance and process through. So, just using all of these tools. Another week, I think I have it booked for the 3rd week in July, throughout this whole conversation of self-awareness, we're going to be talking about something that's really beautiful called the work. And it was created by a woman named Byron Katie. We're going to be going through this whole process. And what's so beautiful about this is it can really help us see how very deeply held beliefs, especially about people in our lives, about relationships, about the way things are, how they can be also holding us back. And to be able to have an incredible shift in perspective, to be able to step back and look at, a certain experience or a certain pattern that's happening in your life that feels very stagnant or stuck. It's a really incredible process that we can, take a step back and really look at it, at what's going on from a complete shift in perspective that can actually open up so much healing and relief and letting go. Because again, within this, when we're not always aware, we can be telling ourselves a story about a certain person, about a certain relationship or an experience that might not even be true. But we can be so certain that it's true that it can be incredibly painful to experience. So, there's a lot of release, there's a lot of opportunity for healing here and more peace and happiness and joy and comfort, and also more forward momentum for us to be able to push through and get to these areas in our lives that we're striving for, that we have these ambitions for. So more forward momentum is also what comes from doing this work, from having more self-awareness. It really ends up resulting in more success in all areas of life, in relationships, in career, whatever it is that you're pursuing in your life, whether it's, trying to get in shape, whether it's trying to improve your nutrition, improve your health, quitting smoking, whatever it is, right? Having that self-awareness of what it is that's actually causing us to reach for the thing, that of course is creating comfort for us, but it's creating short-term comfort in exchange for a long-term gain that, might take a little bit more effort and energy to attain. So self-awareness, as you can see, is a big topic, and that's why we're going to be covering this for the next 3 weeks. But I just wanted to open up the conversation today and share a little bit about, really how important it is in our lives, how attractive it is. It really is, I think, it's like one of the sexiest things in another human being, to be able to get to a place where, you might have a disagreement, you might not see things, eye to eye, but that you can actually share what's underneath it, what's creating the trigger, what caused me to react a certain way because of what this other person did. And to be able to actually open up, it really allows for a deepening of the relationship, which is a really beautiful thing. So thank you for those of you who are watching, whether you're watching live now, you're watching the recording. If you have any questions about the conversation today, about self-awareness, about self-sabotage, definitely put them in the comments, or you can send me a message. If there's anything specific that you want to know a little bit more about in the realm of self-awareness that I can continue to cover, since we're going to be talking about this over the next couple of weeks, I'm happy to adjust my plans a little bit to make sure that all of these questions are getting answered. I actually have a couple of spaces in a group coaching program called Spark Over Sabotage. Self-sabotage is a topic that's really near and dear to my heart, especially in supporting humans in growing and healing through the things that have held them back forever. And so I do have a group coaching program called Spark Over Sabotage, and we meet every other Tuesday. So tomorrow evening, and then two Tuesdays from that in the evenings, 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. If you're interested in finding out more about Spark Over Sabotage and you'd like to join that group, it's a really beautiful opportunity for group coaching and to be able to receive support in your own self-sabotage. And then, as I shared in my stories over the weekend, the other thing that you can do to continue this conversation, to have a deeper experience of this, is to join the Comeback Queen. And I'll put the link to join the Comeback Queen as well on this post. But it's an opportunity for you to discover more about this. So what we'll be doing within the Comeback Queen this week is talking a lot more about self-sabotage and how you can receive more support, different tools that you can use, and ways that you can access or bypass self-sabotage, deepen your self-awareness, and just in general, overall improve your life. This is kind of like one of the secret sauce recipes to having a very peaceful life. Having the high self-awareness, low self-sabotage, and being able to have these important conversations with the important people in our lives. So thank you so much for watching. I think that's Tamara that's here. Hi, Tamara. And thank you, Leisha. And for those of you who are watching after in the recording, so much love. I'm excited to see you again next week, continuing this conversation. And I believe next week we're talking about inner child. And so that's another topic that's so important to me and I find so fascinating. And so I will see you here next week, 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, and we'll talk about that, inner child and self-awareness. Lots of love. Mwah.